Buying parts for a computer right now is the absolute worst freaking experience that you can possibly have, especially if you're after a graphics card and a processor, and especially if you want the latest stuff. Even the old stuff, you can't get it right now. This is why I suggested to a friend to buy a pre-built, of all things. So today we're gonna be checking that out. My name is Chris, this is Coalition Gaming, and today I'll be your computer technician. Real quick, if you're new around here and are into tech, PC, hardware, gaming, stream tips and tutorials, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and that bell so you don't miss a single upload. And I stream to Twitch every Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific, so stop on in, let's talk some tech, drop a follow maybe. Anyways, let's get to the video. So yeah, like I said, piecing together a computer right now is probably the worst thing you can possibly go through. And it wasn't that bad just even over a little month and a half ago, but December, everything just went to hell, and now you can't buy graphics cards. You have to watch streams of stock checkers to even get anything, and when things are in stock, there's not even a guarantee that you can even get it because of bots and scalpers and just a ton of other people in the market looking to get stuff. So, well, it turns out that right now, certain pre-builts are a good value for the money, and I got one from Skytech PC, rather, it's one I suggested for a friend, and he brought it by for us to check out today. So let's bring it up on the desk. Hey! This is the Skytech Gaming Archangel PC. It has a Ryzen 5 3600, I believe an ASRock B450M Pro 4 motherboard. It's got some fans in it, 3 RGB fans, RGB lighting on the case, which is kind of nice. 500 gigabyte SSD, and for the graphics card, a GTX 1660 Super, which when I was trying to put together a computer for my friend with those specs, it was gonna be almost $200 more for the same specs given the current market conditions, and none of those graphics cards were even in stock to try to get. This was in stock for $1,000. So let's open it up and see if it's, all it's cracked up to be. And let me tell you why packaging is important. There are parts that hang off of the motherboard in cases like this, and if they're getting shipped across the country, it's important that the packaging is strong so that stuff doesn't fall off and break. All right, and there it is. It's a nice white case. Tempered glass side panel. It's got hinges. I'm actually a fan of the hinged tempered glass because you don't have to worry about it so much when it comes to removing it. It won't fall off. Also included in the box is a keyboard and mouse. I don't think this was on the product page for it, so I wasn't sure if it came with keyboard and mouse, but hey, it comes with that stuff. And we got another box of stuff as well. Looks like a Wi-Fi antenna, power cable, and the product manual, Skytech. Okay, so already here from the outside it says, stop, please follow the instructions in your quick start guide before plugging in your new PC. If the quick start guide was not included with your PC, please go to the website and get it there.
Undercarriage.
I see, I feel it now. All right, let's open it up. See, this is what I love about the hinge, man. And it opens really far too, so that's useful. A lot of them with hinges only go to like here and make it a pain in the ass to build in, but this will work. So already inside we have Instapack. This is to keep the components inside stabilized. So stabilized components, less likely to fail. Let's remove this and see what's really inside. And the result is a computer.
Oh my God! Wow!
They have a micro ATX motherboard with a single fan GTX 1660 Super in here, so needless to say, there's a lot of open space inside of this computer. Now, everything is as advertised in terms of the components, although there are disclaimers that say that you may not get the exact parts shown in the picture. These are not the exact parts shown in the picture for this computer, but the motherboard is, and the GPU, I mean, the performance should stack up. It may not look the nicest inside of the case, but I guess it also look a little different once we turn it on. So now we're looking at the inside of the computer, and it is actually kind of a big deal that a pre-built comes with a dual channel setup. And both of these appear like they're plugged in right. It looks like it's XPG, so this is ADATA RAM, which is a reputable brand. This does not look like it's exactly like some cheapo RAM. It's DDR4 3000, not the fastest for Ryzen 5 3600, but it is still plenty good. CL16, the timing is okay. And yeah, and we have it in dual channel right off the bat. This is 16 gigs right here, so plenty for most usages, most gaming, streaming, you know, all that sort of stuff. They look like they're in there good. We have I guess this is a Cooler Master CPU cooler, probably similar performance to that of the stock Wraith cooler for the Ryzen 5 3600. Nothing special, no RGB, nothing like that. But inside the case, we have 3 fans, RGB fans, and they are set as exhaust with only a single intake fan. And that's a little bit of a problem because that's negative pressure setup, and it will be extra dusty as a result. So I'm going to take the liberty of installing some more intake fans to balance that out, but we'll get to that later. Let's keep going on the inside. Wire management from this side seems like it's fine. However, the serial ATA cable that looks a little weird, man. Look at how that moves there, and it also looks like it's moving the port because of the tension on this. So I'm just gonna go ahead and move this over to a port where it has less tension on it, a little more slack. We're probably gonna be adding an NVMe SSD to this, so the fact that was a little loose won't be a big deal long term for this usage, but yeah, it is kind of concerning, but it's fine. Main power cable appears to be plugged in correctly all the way in. CPU power cable, same thing. And the GPU appears to be plugged in completely properly. It's in there, it's locked in. Everything else looks like it's good to go. On the inside, we have the 2.5-inch Western Digital Blue SSD in its tray, locked in. Everything looks good from the inside. I mean, micro ATX in a case like this still looks like it leaves a lot of space, but like I mentioned already, everything looks good so far. Let's go around back and look at the I/O. So we're looking at the I/O on the back now, and there was a sticker here. We removed it. It left a little bit of residue, so that's a little unfortunate. We have a VGA, so if you got an APU in there, something with integrated Vega graphics, you'll be able to use that as it stands. Don't plug your stuff into this if you get one of these computers. We have a PS2 port. That's kind of surprising to see. I'm pretty fine with seeing them on stuff because I also have a PS2 keyboard that I use for troubleshooting when USB won't work in BIOS environments, but it is interesting to see it there still. 2 USB 3.0 ports, an HDMI port, another pair of USB 3.0 ports, a couple of USB 2.0 ports. I actually don't think I think it's a regular USB 2.0 and a black USB 3 because it says SS on it. SS is usually the signature for USB 3.0 speed. So
yeah, but normally you go off the color.
Yeah, you would, but
the bracket could just be wrong. That bracket could be used for multiple models.
That's true. So if you guys could hear that, that was my friend Matt saying that maybe this I/O shield is used for more models that do have USB 3.0 in that spot. Yeah. So Ethernet port. This is going to be gigabit, and then we have our normal 3.5mm jacks. Here's an interesting thing about the graphics card. DVI. I thought DVI sort of went away once I don't know, the 1600 series of graphics cards were out, but this one has DVI, HDMI, and DisplayPort. Good thing about DVI is that it's basically the same signal as HDMI, just without audio most of the time. So you can adapt this to HDMI, no problem. But also because it's digital, you can adapt it to DisplayPort if you needed to. So it's highly adaptable, and the adapters for it are pretty cheap. So it's not that big a deal that it's DVI, but it's just surprising to see. Then we have an integrated Wi-Fi card, the Wi-Fi antenna that I showed you earlier. Well, that's where we plug in here. And let's talk about the power supply. Let's do that next. Okay, so let's take the back panel off to look at the power supply, and I guess we're gonna check out the wire management as well. And not bad. So here's the channel on the top here. Well, I guess the front of it. This back channel is something I actually really like. It gives you a lot of space to well, have more cables here, but also if you had like RGB controllers, fan hubs, things like that, you've got a spot for it with while you're still able to close the case in an okay enough way. The CPU power cable routed along the back over here is cutting it close in terms of being able to close the case, because like it barely fits into the channel here, but it's secured well. And the rest of the cables are stuffed back here like any normal builder would do. This is not like a boutique sort of thing. This just looks like it was built by a normal person with normal computer building skills, and there's nothing wrong with that. So down here we have this slot for the 3.5-inch drive. I thought that there would be 2 in this space. Most cases like this have 2 in the basement, but maybe you can put a 3.5-inch drive in the bottom and one along the top here. I'm not entirely sure on that, but don't count on putting a lot of 3.5-inch drives in a case like this. So now one more thing to check is the power supply. Let's look down here. We have what appears to be a Thermaltake Smart 500 watt power supply, 80 plus certified. Not a bad power supply. There's probably people that say it's probably not the greatest power supply, sure, but a computer with this specs is actually, this is a unit that I would possibly even consider building in a computer just like this, so good job, I guess. All right, well, before we turn it on, let's do the peel. That's a good one. All right, well, moment of truth. Let's turn the computer on and see how it looks all powered up. Let's see how the RGB and stuff comes. Very nice. We got what appears to be addressable RGB fans. The front intake fan that's just black is kind of boring. It's a Thermaltake fan apparently, and I can see. But I like the RGB lighting in the front here, which is, to me, that's actually kind of a plus, because if you didn't have RGB fans mounted in the front, it's still, you're still getting front RGB. It's not too loud. Then again, it's not under load yet. So overall, I think this looks pretty cool. Look at that. There's the front. There's the side. You can see the RGB up on the top as well. Good stuff. All right, well, let's get some other shots of this, and we'll get more into talking about it. Okay, so I guess I'm blind or something, because when I was looking at the motherboard, I thought it was an ASRock. All the pictures said it was ASRock. All the Amazon review says an ASRock B450M Pro 4 or B450 Pro 4. But this one specifically that they ship with, they changed that. It is a BioStar, and the specific model of it is, it's a BioStar B450MH. Again, nothing wrong with it, especially just using a Ryzen 5 3600 in it. So let's check in the BIOS if all the settings and stuff are correct, especially the RAM speed settings. Already looking at it, 3000 megahertz, which is the advertised speed of the RAM. It's already there, so I may not even need to set the what you call it, the XMP on it. SATA configuration should not be, it's on H, yeah, good. So it shouldn't be on the IDE. Everything looks good here. Chipset common options, USB, Gen 1. Everything looks good so far. Let's see NVMe, because we are going to be upgrading it. It's not there yet. And I don't see anything about XMP on the memory, so let me poke around a little bit. Oh, here we go. All right, I found it under their 1 setting. Memory clock mode, XMP. XMP enabled by default. That's actually a nice plus. A lot of pre-builts. If any of you guys have seen any of the Linus Secret Shopper videos, you see that this isn't always enabled, and these guys have it enabled by default. That's really the most important thing here to note in the BIOS. CPU clock is on auto, CPU ratio is on auto. Everything else looks good, so let's go ahead and boot it into Windows. Okay, so here we are in Ryzen Master with Prime 95 running now for about 10 minutes, and we hit the temperature limit of the CPU. It is sitting at 95 degrees Celsius. Clock speed's holding around 3.7, 3.8 gigahertz. I did see it for a while. It was hanging out at a higher frequency when the temperature was lower, so that's the CPU auto frequency adjustment doing its thing. I did make sure to go and turn on XFR on this one, just in case there's any CPU temperature headroom to do a little bit of auto overclocking, but it doesn't look like the CPU cooler is going to let you do a whole lot of that. However, again, this is Prime 95. It is a non-realistic test for general use in gaming. General use in gaming, you will probably be about 20 to 30 degrees cooler. Well, this is just showing you that this CPU cooler at a max load with a 6-core processor is probably not quite enough. You probably need something a little bit better, but again, for general use in gaming, it will probably be just fine. Something to consider though is that this computer right now is very quiet. So it could be default configured from the factory to be a very silent profile, and that could be what's holding back the CPU cooler. So let's go back into the BIOS and check on the CPU PWM fan settings and see if we can maybe get a little bit more performance out of it. Okay, so here I am back in the BIOS. I went into the fan control section of it, and yeah, looks like control mode is set to manual, and the highest value here is 50%. So the CPU cooler fan couldn't spin faster than 50%, which could really hold it back under a CPU stress situation. So we're gonna just go into manual here, change the control mode to aggressive, and then save and exit. Okay, after setting it to aggressive in the BIOS, we're back at 95C after 15-20 minutes in Prime 95. So I guess, yeah, what I said about the cooler still holds true. A cooler upgrade in the future could be a good upgrade, but like I've kept repeating, this is not typical of gaming and traditional web browsing and stuff kind of workload. So, you know, just take it for what it is. Okay, so it's time to take the computer down. Let's do some upgrades. We're gonna add a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD and some more intake fans in order to like properly bring this up to speed, you know? All right, let's do it. All right, something else to mention here is at the bottom, dust filter. So that's kind of cool. You got a long old dust filter on the bottom. Also the magnetic dust filter up on the top as well. So you're covered in terms of dust filters. Although I don't think the front with the vents along here has that. So something to think about. Actually, I was wrong. It does have a like a metal grate kind of basic sort of dust filter in there in the front. So good. And there we go, NVMe installed. Let's keep on going. All right, fans have been added to the front. We now have 3 120mm fans in the front for intake and 3 for exhaust. So we're to a neutral air pressure setup. So hopefully that will reduce like dust accumulation and such. One thing I wanted to talk about though is I also found that in the like the manual book that they give, they have a quality control certificate here. So they checked for the build inspection, which like they're checking for it's the correct case, the correct CPU, correct memory, drives, Wi-Fi, checking for physical damage, fans, graphics cards, that sort of stuff. Installation of the driver software, Windows activation and version. Performance testing, including Prime 95 and Firmark torture tests, as well as correct thermal performance. So it looks as far as their inspections of it go, that it's pretty solid. That once you actually receive something from them, that it's been tested properly. And so far, my experience with it has been pretty accurate. Nothing in here really needed help. Everything was secured properly. CPU cooler was in there properly. Temperatures, they did leave a little bit to be desired with the CPU cooler, but are going to be fine for gaming and general use. And the only gripe that I really have with it is that it only came with a single intake fan and 3 exhaust fans. Now, if they went with all RGB fans, obviously that would have fixed it. You know, they would have had 3 intake fans to 3 exhaust fans, but they only had a single cheap intake fan. I added 2 more fans to that, so now it's all balanced out, so that should be fine, but you know, not everybody's gonna have spare fans on hand to do that. And I'd also advise a CPU cooler upgrade as well. Performance-wise, I ran benchmarks with Time Spy and Firestrike. Everything looked to be on par for what it's supposed to be. The Ryzen 5 3600 and a 1660 Super did update the drivers before running that as well, by the way. And it did need updated drivers, so that is something to consider, especially if you wanted to play a game like Cyberpunk on it, which you pretty much need to get those updated drivers for proper performance. Yeah, other than that, there's no real complaints with the system. For the price that it comes in at, you could spend a little bit more money for a little bit more storage and some fans, and then you're all set. It's gonna still be around the same cost as if you were to try to find these parts right now and put it together. And you can actually get this from Amazon or Best Buy or other websites. So if you wanted to check it out more, I'll leave a link to this case, this computer, down in the description below. You can check it out on Amazon, and I believe they have SkyTech as well at Best Buy, so I'll leave some of that in there as well, and some recommendations for some fans. I'll link all that stuff down below. Oh, I did want to add one more gripe. Something I went over a little bit earlier, though, was that the motherboard is not what I thought it was going to be. I get that with builders like this, they're building with a B450 motherboard and a Ryzen 5 3600 CPU. The motherboard is less specific. You know you're getting a B450 board, sure, but you don't know which one. And all the photos on this one showed an ASRock B450 M Pro 4 or the B450 Pro 4, but what we got was a BioStar B450 something or other. What is that? B450 MH, which is not good, not that great. For a 6-core, 12-thread CPU like this, perfectly fine. Absolutely fine. And running a 8-core 3700X stock speed, also probably fine. But it's not going to be great for overclocking. The VRMs don't have any heat sinks on them, and it is very, very bare bones. There isn't even any additional 4-pin PWM fan headers on this. I had to add the PWM fans in the front with the PWM splitter coming off the main CPU PWM header. Yeah, that's a little unfortunate. Worked out in this case, but it may not work out for everybody, and it kind of sucks because technically the motherboard is the cheapest component in here. The power supply usually costs around that much nowadays. It's just kind of funny, kind of sucky, but fortunately, RAM is running at its proper speed. BIOS, everything looks fine. It's perfectly fine for this CPU, so it's a perfectly fine system overall. With all that being said, that covers it. It does suck that in this market, trying to piece together a gaming computer is just an annoyingly disgusting thing to try to do. But, well, pre-builts and even laptops have really stepped up in terms of value, and that if you go with one of those, you'll get one that will do what you want it to do. Don't expect the best parts, sure, of course, but will it accomplish solid 1080p gaming? In this one with the 1660 Super and the Ryzen 5 3600? Absolutely. Did it come shipped with good packaging? Did it come safely? Was anything broken? Nothing was broken. Packaging was good. System worked. Yeah, what else could you ask for, I guess? Anyways, if you like this video, make sure you click that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you want more content like this or any stream tips, tutorials, any of the other content that we cover. And I stream to Twitch every Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/Coalition Gaming Crew. So hop on over there, drop a follow. Let's talk some tech. I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Real quick, also, we have more videos linked right over here. So lots of content over there. You should click one. Or if you don't, just go to the Twitch. I'll see you in the stream chat, maybe.